vocals are very straightforward, singing the exact notes that the guitars and the bass have introduced up to this point.
Hey everyone, my name is Christoph Jakob. I'm a music composer for video games. Sizzle season is just around the corner and it appears that we're finally getting some new music along with it. What better time to finally start and analyze some of Splatoon 3's multiplayer tracks? Today, let's start with probably the most iconic multiplayer track in the series and all its different variants. I'm of course talking about Splattack. Before we get into it, I've been working on my own Splatoon-inspired album for the past few months, and you can now pre-order the album with 12 brand new songs over on my Bandcamp page. Link in both the description and in the pinned comment below. Thank you so much, and let's get into today's video. Starting with the Splatoon 1 version of Splattack. Let's go! Who doesn't know this song? It's just so iconic. Splattack is iconic. If you think about music that's typical for the Splatoon franchise, then this tune is probably one of the first ones, if not the very first one, that should come to mind. But what is it that makes Splatoon music even feel like Splatoon music? Specifically talking about multiplayer tracks. Is it just the instrumentation? The crunchy guitar riff? The snappy bass lines? And quirky synth sounds? Or is there more to it than that? Obviously, the instrumentation does play a big role in giving us what we would call Splatoon vibes. Splatoon is punk, Splatoon is fresh, edgy and cool. And that is reflected by the choice of instruments. If you break it down, Splattack is actually quite straightforward in that regard. You can hear electric guitars, bass, drums and squidified vocals. As well as that distinctive lead sound, which is actually a synth organ kind of instrument taken from a plugin called Omnisphere. The Splatoon composers love using that plugin.
Bang, 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 bang.
In Splattack, the guitar is shredding a simplistic bass riff. No. In Splattack, the guitar is shredding a simplistic riff. And the bass is pretty much just doing what the guitars are doing. The drums have a rock music kind of approach, with the snare drum typically hitting the 2 and 4 of each bar. However, they do rhythmically adjust to what's happening in the melody. But to me, the main element so far that just screams Splatoon is actually just one specific single note. The final interval, so the distance between two notes, is what you call a tritone, also sometimes known as the devil's interval. And it makes sense, it can sound devilishly good at times. When listening to it standalone, the tritone is certainly one of the most odd and awkward intervals out there. But in the right context, tritones can really shine and turn a bland and boring chord or chord progression into something special and interesting. Splatoon music is all about breaking conventions. This avant-garde approach might not be that obvious in Splattack at first listen, especially compared to, say, Salmon Run music. But the tendencies are and have always been there. What makes this note in particular even more interesting is that it's technically completely out of key. It might literally be the note you expect the least, as the music has just established that we are in the key of A minor. Yet at the end of this main motif, we're greeted with an unexpected major third. It's like the tune itself can't decide whether it wants to be minor or major. And this both or neither minor and major mentality, or whatever you want to call it, is something that actually appears in a lot of other songs as well. Here are 3 more examples that make use of this approach. Let's move on. I'm a huge fan of this vocal sound. The song is surprisingly simplistic. During this section, the guitars take a backseat, giving the bass as well as the newly introduced vocals by Squid Squad some space to shine.
The vocals are very straightforward, singing exactly what the guitars and the bass have established until this point.
The main riff is then being transposed up a semitone, before quickly dropping back down into its original key. Despite that one unexpected note I mentioned earlier, Splattack is actually quite simplistic and straightforward. But maybe that's what makes it so special and catchy to begin with. The main riff again. Surprise chord. This climax or chorus section is making use of one of my favorite compositional tools out there. And that is establishing and repeating a melody while everything around that melody changes. I love how the vocals here once again include the minor third, typical for minor chords, as well as the major third, which is typical for major chords. Here and there it even sounds a little like notes that are in between the minor and major third. So basically intentionally sounding slightly detuned. The bass and the drums are even more simplistic during this section to not distract at all from the over-the-top quirky melody. Also notice how at the end of the phrases we get to hear the initial Splattack riff again. The main riff again. This sort of repetition really helps to ingrain a melody into your head. I think my favorite part about this entire section though is that it's pretty much impossible to tell whether the lead instrument is an electric guitar or vocals. It's kinda both, but also kinda neither. Rise chord. I I also really love the sound of this instrument. Once again, a surprise chord. It's just such a nice tune. The final section of Splattack is, once again, quite simplistic. We're moving away from A minor for the first time, over to D major, which is over there, I guess. The lead is neither played by the crunchy electric guitars, nor by the quirky vocals this time. But the synth organ kind of instrument is given some time in the spotlight. There's actually not much that changes for the bass and the drums. They keep doing their more or less static and straightforward thing. And I mean, it works just perfectly fine. I do really like the chord progression that's being used here. Nothing too out of the extraordinary, but the final part might catch you slightly off guard if you're not prepared for it. Moving from F sharp minor to F major is certainly something you don't necessarily expect. It's building just the right amount of tension without sounding odd or weird. And the surprise F chord here has appeared earlier in the tune before too. Surprise F chord. I think it's pretty safe to say that the composers have laid a pretty solid foundation for the general music approach of the Splatoon franchise with Splattack. Obviously, I don't know if Splattack was even the first tune to be composed for Splatoon. As a composer for games myself, I know that main themes are often composed a little later in development than people might expect. Next up, let's see what they did to... Next up, let's see what they did to this tune in Splatoon 2. I vaguely remember this tune. It's much faster than the original. And chopped up in so many little pieces and fragments. What are the drums doing? It sounds so quirky and dumb. In Splatoon 2, Splattack is not actually the main theme anymore, but instead it's supposed to serve the function of a boss theme. Let's talk about elements where the composers stay true to the original first. The song is still in the key of A minor, and the chords, as well as the overall structure of the tune, are more or less identical to the Splatoon version so far, excluding the intro, of course, which has been extended a little. Everything else is different. The tune is definitely faster as a whole, and makes much more creative use of samples. The entire song has basically been sliced into little fragments, which have then been reassembled and sampled to create this new piece of music. The rhythm and the drums in particular are so frantic and hectic at times, it almost sounds like someone is tripping over a drum kit here and there. All these elements are typical for electronic music genres such as breakbeat and breakcore among others. And I mean, based on in-game lore, it's a DJ that has written this remix. So it makes sense. If you're a musician yourself, try writing a piece of music in one of those genres. It differs so much from traditional songwriting and compositional approaches, and it's actually harder to make something decent than you may expect at first. Ultimately, music is not about what you can show people that you can do. It's about creating sounds that are interesting to listen to. So quirky and Dumb. Oh, nice alarm sound. Ah, what an awesome drum fill. Yeah, why not? Instead of jumping into the climax or chorus section now, the composers made a fake out and added an admittedly quite long build-up with a quirky sounding alarm that pretty much warns you that the tune is about to drop any moment now. This section also adds quite a bit of humor to the piece of music as a whole, signalizing that you're not actually facing a serious threat here. Whenever I hear that orchestral hit especially, I just have to smile. Why not? I absolutely love this. What is the bass doing? And those drum fills are really everything. They are what make this tune so interesting. Such a fun yet awkward tune. I absolutely adore what they did to the climax section. It's amazing how different Splattack feels here, despite using the same chords, the same chord progression, and mostly the same instruments as in the original. They actually combined the last two sections of the original and turned it into one section here. As you can probably tell, the focus lies on the vocals, but try paying attention to this whistle kind of sound they added. That instrument is playing the exact same melody that appeared one section later in the original Splattack. Take another listen. I absolutely love this. My favorite thing about the final section in the Splatoon 2 version is that both the drums and the bass finally get their chance to shine. In Splatoon 1, they've mainly just been there to fill in the musical pocket, so to speak. Being there and also being necessary, of course, but not really being the focus of attention. The bass, which is actually a synth bass here, is going completely nuts now, playing the most awkward and unexpected melodic fragments you can possibly think of. Some of those drum fills are also just pure ear candy. What an awkward yet amazing rendition of Splattack. Let's take a look what happened to this tune in Splatoon 3. Different key. And once again different key. Nice guitar sound though. It sounds much more heavy than the original. I also think there are more guitars in there. The Splatoon 3 version of Splattack seems to stay pretty close to the original as well, but changes it up just as much to give it a completely new feel at least. The intro is significantly longer though. They mostly just decided to have the drummers enjoy themselves a little more. We're also in a different key compared to the original for the first time. We're no longer in A minor, but instead the tune starts in G minor, which is one whole step below, quickly shifting up a half step to A flat minor, which is only half a step below the original. This little change already helps make the tune feel slightly more heavy and a little edgy without going too much overboard. The bass and drums are pretty much playing exactly what they used to play in the Splatoon 1 version, at least so far, and so does the main guitar riff. They have added more guitars though, as well as a completely different kind of synth sound. It no longer sounds like an organ kind of instrument to my ears. One thing that is worth noting though is that the focus of the music lies way more on the electric guitars than it did in the original. But to be honest, that's pretty much just part of the signature seaside sound. Very close to the original though. That was easy. Nope. Surprise drum fill. This entire verse section, or whatever you want to call it, has also stayed pretty much identical, excluding the different key and the different kind of vocal sounds, of course. I'm usually trying not to talk too much about my personal opinion on songs, but while this version of Splattack is clearly better produced, by that I mean it just sounds more professional, I gotta say I personally much prefer the vocal sound they used in the original. Don't get me wrong, I do love Seaside and their music, but the more edgy and dirty vocals of Squid Squad just suited this tune a little better in my opinion.
Feel free to disagree with me, or throw tomatoes at me for saying that.
I do like the little drum fill we get before the tune moves on to surprise drum fill, and we're in halftime now. That was a nice fill. This tune just makes you so happy. There are so many things I like about the climax section of this tune. First of all, let's talk about what's probably the biggest change compared to the original, at least regarding the overall feel of the music, and that has to do with the drums. The drums are playing in halftime now, and that term should probably be quite self-explanatory. It's usually quite easy to identify double time and halftime when you're paying attention to the kick and the snare drum specifically. The snare drum used to play on bars 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But now it's playing only on the 3 of each bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is obviously a little oversimplified, but this should help you figure out the different kind of drum rhythm pattern thingies that are out there. Next time you're listening to a piece of music, try finding out if the drummer moves to double time or half time throughout the song. The chord progression pretty much stays the same, relative to our new key, A flat minor. But there are a lot of little embellishments and small subtle changes that are worth noting. They really give this version of Splattack its own identity. As a bassist, I also love how the bass is given the chance to shine here a little more. It's the simple things sometimes. Let's quickly compare the bass parts from Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 3 during this section. That synth sound. Wobbly vibrato synth sound. Very nice. The chords seem to be exactly the same though. That was rhythmically interesting. Closer to the Splatoon 2 version actually. Very nice. Very, very nice. Please like this video and subscribe if you have not already. Feel free to let me know which song you'd like me to react to next in the comments below. As I've mentioned earlier, I've also written an own album inspired by the Splatoon franchise, which you can now pre-order on Bandcamp. Link to that is both in the description and in the pinned comment below. If you'd like to stay up to date, you can also follow me over on Twitter or join my Discord server. Thanks to everyone who's showing interest in these tunes, I appreciate it a lot. With all that being said, see you next time.